Hello, everybody. I'm Shane.
And I'm Ken.
And welcome to GemTalk. Alright, so today we're going to look at Laser Light Cannon, which is the second episode.
When I was first watching Steven Universe, I believed that these first two episodes were shown together. Maybe back to back.
Yeah.
So I always kind of thought of them as a unit, not as two separate episodes. But
yeah, I'm not sure. By the time I started watching the show, I honestly don't even remember what the most recent episode was. We'd have to go back and look to see if they were aired on separate days. But again, since the episodes are so short, it is easy to imagine that several could blend together and become one episode.
yeah, this episode most importantly introduces Greg.
Yeah, throughout the first episode, we see nothing of Greg. We see nothing of Steven's relationship with his father. It's, I don't even know if it's alluded to. I don't remember. But this episode is very Greg-centric, though it doesn't seem like it at first. Before that even happens, before Greg even shows up, the first important thing that happens in this episode, I think, is that we see some more of Beach City's residents.
Yeah, this is the first time we get to see the fry shop and Mr. Fryman.
Mm-hmm. And Steven's love for the bits.
Oh, yes, the bits. Give us the bits.
Yeah, which I guess is just supposed to emulate the small little chunks of French fries that are left over whenever you finish all of the big ones.
Yeah, and they tend to be overcooked because they're so small.
So it's just a big handful of crunchiness.
Yeah. Just like overcooked potato chips. And
yeah, it's just like overly burned charcoal-y taste.
And I also thought that perhaps they liked them because maybe they weren't charged for them because they were just like the remnants instead of the regular fries.
I mean, I don't know, because Mr. Fryman just straight up says, I could just give you guys real fries. So I don't know what kind of economy Beach City runs on, but maybe Steven has some sort of special pass, or maybe all of the Crystal Gems do, and that's just the blood money for saving the city so regularly.
Or at least most of the city.
Most of the city.
Yes. Honestly, I think money only really shows up occasionally in the show. We see an American dollar at some point. With notable differences, which we can get to at that time.
Yeah, I think one of the things is actually a diamond shows up where the whole pyramid and eye symbol is on a normal dollar bill.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, the other thing is that there's Steven and then there's Amethyst. Mm-hmm. And I know the fandom has given nicknames to the Crystal Gems. Like Garnet is Square Mom and Pearl is Bird Mom. And Amethyst is...
I actually don't see Amethyst's nickname used very regularly. I think she's just referred to as Cool Mom.
Cool Mom.
Yeah. I mean, I've always felt that Amethyst, even though all of the Crystal Gems are kind of referred to as Steven's mothers, Amethyst always felt more like a big sister to me. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever met anybody's mother that's been very much like Amethyst.
Yeah, I mean, the three Crystal Gems are caricatures, and so they're three aspects that motherhood can take, brought to their extremes.
Yeah, I mean, she's just a little too indulgent in Steven's childishness for me to feel...
She's childish enough herself.
Yeah, that's why she always felt more like a sister figure.
Right, and, I have seen... The parent that tries to be the child's friend.
Yeah, but that usually comes off pretty hokey or pretty... Like, you can tell that the parent isn't pulling it off too well. Amethyst, I mean, she's just right up there with Steven in level of maturity. Maybe the slightest bit more.
Mm-hmm. Just strictly through experience, more than anything. And then Pearl, or Bird Mom, is the super protective.
Oh, yeah. Super type A, incredibly overbearing, and just is too afraid that anything will happen. Almost like the kind of parent that puts their child, like, in a bunch of protective, like, clothing or garments or whatever to keep them from getting too cold or too sick or anything.
Would put them in a bubble if they could, and actually they could if they really wanted to.
Well, Steven comes with his own.
Yeah, eventually. And then there's Garnet, who I couldn't classify for the longest time.
Square Mom!
Yeah. Eventually, I found out that she's the type that is like, go ahead and do what you want, and you're going to have to learn from your own mistakes.
She's the type of parent that allows a child to learn from their experiences. One of the scenes that sticks out in my mind very vividly is when Steven says, I think it's Danger is his middle name, and she boops him on the nose and says, no, your middle name is Cutie Pie.
Yeah. That's one of the pre-Jailbreak episodes, right? Yeah.
I think that's Garnet's universe, actually.
Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah, because I think it was around the time of Garnet's universe that I started to change my opinion of Garnet, because I realized that the main reason I didn't really care much for her is because I didn't really know anything about her.
Yeah, especially that weighted hair.
I love that episode. That's just like, it's like a love letter to like anime.
Oh yeah, anime and video games. That's like Eastern style entertainment, just references. I mean, the two characters that accompany Garnet in that episode are a parody of Usagi Yojimbo and Frog from Chrono Trigger. So
the cultural references all over the place, but that is not
this episode.
But we're just talking about the three crystal gems, the differences in the way that they fulfill the role of mother. And I think I've also seen something that compares them to different types of dependence.
Yeah. I couldn't quote them at the moment.
Yeah, it was
but
like codependent, independent, and I forget the others.
So they're a bunch of different triumvirates that they can represent, which is really easy seeing as there are three of them, and since it is a cartoon, you can make characters into caricatures without it feeling strange or being unusual. But there's also Rose, who, again, as far as, I mean, she never really got to be a mother,
right?
I mean, aside from to the crystal gems.
Yeah, it's in the physical sense.
Yeah.
And this is also one of the first episodes that starts to focus on Rose, and particularly her relationship with Greg, and then by extension with Steven. At this point in the story, Rose is an image.
Yeah.
You know, the image that's been projected, I'm sure that's been taught to Steven since he's been old enough to know any different.
Yeah.
Is like basically what a paragon of virtue Rose is. And it's not for a while that we start to learn things that start to maybe call that into question a little bit.
Well, I don't think that happens until much later, actually. I think the image that Rose is a flawless figure is still pretty strong. It's only by sort of reading between the lines that you can start to pick out pieces that may start to cast a shadow on that.
Mirror gem. When Lapis starts to cast doubt on the assumed goodness of the crystal gems, it's like, oh, wait a minute, this might be a little bit more to this than we initially thought. Going back into the story, they just leave the fry shop. They're eating the fry bits. They notice the red eye, and Amethyst's initial reaction is, what is that doing here?
Yeah, she definitely indicates that she's seen one of these before.
And knows it's a big deal and runs off to find the others. They're already aware this is happening because they're there with the telescope looking at it.
It's also kind of hard to miss.
The two of them run up to where Pearl and Garnet are observing it through the telescope. And Pearl describes it as a red eye.
Yeah.
She says that the biggest danger from it is that it was going to crush everyone. Now, it was alluded to in a future episode that the red eye was actually reporting back to Homeworld what it was observing.
Yeah.
Now, it is an eye. And there seems to be this sort of body part thing with gem technology.
Yeah, Homeworld technology seems to focus a lot on humanoid body parts, because there's the hand ship, there's the red eye. I'm not entirely, there's the roaming eye, which I guess is just another eye figure, almost like you can imagine each of the Homeworld ships could come together and make some like Voltron-esque robot.
Yeah, that'd be pretty fun if they manage that in a later episode.
I still think it'd be really funny to see a spaceship in the shape of a foot, though. Like, like a hand, okay, it's weird, but it's not very weird. But a foot, just a giant foot floating through space, now I'm incredulous.
And then the hand is fully articulated, and like when Peridot escapes from it in Jailbreak, it like flicks the
ship out pod. Yeah, well, there's a lot
when it goes to block the laser light cannon shot, like it's like open palm blocks it.
And there's actually I've read a few things online that indicate that there are a lot of hands in Steven Universe. There's a lot of hand shape and imagery. There's the hand ship. There's the fusions, which have multiple hands. Many of the weapons that the fusions use are hand-based, like the hammer or the flail that Sugalite uses.
The gauntlets.
The gauntlets. There's more. I'd have to go back and look, though. But hands... Oh, the water hands that Malachite summons from the ocean.
All the gem shards, they take up various body parts, but primarily hands.
Yeah, there's a lot of hand imagery in the show.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I hadn't really noticed it to that depth. You know, I noticed like the body part ships.
Yeah, and it might just have to do with the fact that hands are one of the hardest body parts to draw, and so artists have to learn very thoroughly how to practice hands. And I guess if your job is going to be putting your practice into work, well, we might as well flex all of those hand drawing skills.
Yeah. So Pearl doesn't mention that it's a spying device, and I can think of 3 reasons for this. 1, she doesn't know herself.
Yeah.
2, she knows, but she doesn't want to say it to Steven for protection reasons, as previously mentioned. Or 3, it's one of those little hiccups between
something that
early writing and what they end up doing later.
Doesn't end up being fully developed until later. Yeah, and again, I think they managed to gloss over it pretty well because of that vagueness. Is it possible that this is a spying device that could also, as a self-defense mechanism, crash land into Beach City to defend itself? Yes. It's also possible that it finds something, destroys it, and then sends a report home. Who knows? It's never really thoroughly discussed, and therefore anything can be filled in. Yeah,
I mean, if we're to project all the way forward to the cluster arc, the Red Eye was sent to Earth to see what was going on with the cluster. It got destroyed. Then they decided we better send like troops on the ground. So they send Peridot and things ensue from there.
But
when the roaming eye comes in, was it Barnmates?
Yeah.
At the end, first reaction was, oh, it's another Red Eye.
Yeah.
Then you go back to this episode and you look and it's like, actually, it's not.
Another note on the Red Eye is that if you look very closely, I think it's called the sclera of the eye, the white.
The white, yeah.
Normally, it just looks red, but if you pause it and look at it long enough, you can see that there are little yellow triangles floating around in it, which at first may have just been a design choice because it looks cool, kind of gives it that flecked, glittery looking effect that gems have. But as we've come to find out later, the triangle shape is another shape a la the diamond shape, which alludes to this whole Diamond Authority thing. It's my personal theory that after the pink diamond was excised for whatever reason, in order to keep up the equalized imagery, they decided to change their symbol from a 4-sided shape to a 3-sided shape. And that's how they sort of made this transition from diamond-based society, which mirrors the name better.
Yeah, just looking at the Red Eye now, it becomes very obvious that this is a yellow diamond thing.
Yeah, it seems very strange because it's a red eye, which strictly by name would lead me to believe that it came from the pink diamond sector. So maybe it's a leftover artifact from the pink diamond army that got adopted by the yellow diamond army and is now being used for their purposes.
Yeah, I think Peridot describes Yellow Diamond as being like a superb tactician and stuff. If the pink quadrant was intended to be like the warriors, then perhaps when Pink Diamond got ousted, that role was taken over by Yellow Diamond.
Yeah.
It might also go to explain why Peridot, who is technical in like a engineer sense, is under Yellow Diamond, because that could have been what Yellow Diamond originally did, but now handles the actual war parts as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that still revolve around, because as we've indicated previously, there seems to be an association to the color of a gem as to which diamond they serve. And if that's true, we've seen several red-colored gems in the past, ruby being the most notable, but we've yet to see anything about pink diamond. Also rose quartz, obviously. It would seem like there should be anything red, pink, anything in that color sector should fall under the jurisdiction of pink diamond. But we've seen gems like the rubies that show up and hit the diamond that very obviously by the insignia on their garments are following Yellow Diamond. So I don't know if Yellow Diamond has just completely subsumed the Pink Diamond section, though if we're to follow the theory that White Diamond is the only surviving diamond aside from Yellow Diamond, or that none of the other diamonds are surviving, maybe Yellow Diamond's the only one left, and she's running the whole show by herself.
Possibly. I don't know how long Peridot has been existing, but she definitely recognized the mural of Blue Diamond on the moon base.
But that doesn't mean she met them.
She read a lot of files to catch up on the whole cluster scenario, so she could have read up on the other diamonds and whatever. Yeah, it's just stuff we just don't know.
Yeah.
And if the gems' bodies are comprised of light, okay, Peridot's a green gem. She's green colored. Everything about her is green. There are other green gems out there, but none of the diamonds in the Diamond Authority are green.
No.
But if we're considering light, when you mix red and green light together, you get yellow.
Yeah.
Because there's no green diamond out there.
But I think they can just choose this or that, whether it should be green or blue. And I'm sure that, like, for example, if there were purple gems, they would probably be more associated with the Blue Diamond, despite the fact that there's, blue and red colored gems.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just my little thought on that, because when you see gems like Amethyst, for instance, as you just mentioned, or Peridot, and it's like, the only reason you know Peridot's under Yellow Diamond is because she told you.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Amethyst were the Blue Diamond warrior gems.
Yeah, and we know that Blue Diamond was present on Earth at some point because of the answer.
And one of the reasons why she may have had Jaspers protecting her in the answer was to prevent revealing that her warrior type gems would have been amethysts, and that's what amethyst should have looked like, because there's gonna be an episode, I almost calling it now, that there's gonna be an episode in the future where Amethyst gets to see, whether it's in person or in an image or something, an actual fully developed, properly developed Amethyst, and that's just going to trigger all of her insecurities again.
Yeah.
One of my biggest questions about this episode, and I bring it up because it's something that immediately arises whenever I watch this episode in hindsight. This Red Eye is obviously a very big threat. It's something that they're all afraid of. They're afraid it's going to destroy, if not the entire city, more. It almost gets to do so. I mean, it's flipping cars over, it's tearing buildings apart.
It's pulling all the sand up.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the closest emergencies they've had before Jailbreak. And yet they don't decide to fuse. Now, we discussed previously that the reason maybe storytelling-wise that they don't want to spoil that egg just yet. They want to keep that fresh.
Yeah, they don't want to introduce that concept just yet.
But logistically, this would have seemed like an emergency worthy of fusing.
Right. Extreme emergencies, they say.
That something that dramatic, I think, would have called for even Alexandrite.
I'm sure if an actual Red Eye came attacking, like in the next episode, we would see Alexandrite, or maybe even more.
Yeah.
Attacking it. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of the storytelling. They didn't want to spoil that just yet. So, here we are. Let's try to figure out how to deal with this. And I would hate for the series to get into that rut of, we have to fuse every time a new threat comes along. Yeah. Every single episode, it's, oh no, some big threat. Okay, let's fuse and defeat it.
Yeah, you don't want to lose the special flair that comes with having a fusion show up.
Yeah, considering the fact that when they spoiled the fight between Malachite and Alexandrite, everybody was like, whoa, because you never saw Alexandrite outside of fusion cuisine.
Yeah, and I know that the next biggest fusion type thing that's going to come up has to be the whole Lapidot scenario, or some fusion. If it's not Lapidot, which it better be, it'll probably at least involve Peridot, because again, they already put that Chekhov's gun on the table. We already know that Peridot was
at least curious.
Yeah, so you can't initiate something like that and then completely skip the payoff.
Yeah, they just decided to delay that for a little while, and we all went nuts.
That I remember sitting in my chair, just jaw on the floor, eyes glued to the screen.
Like, no way, no way. Thinking that the log date episode was just going to be a quick cleanup of, what's happened, which it was for the most part. And then all of a sudden, oh, what? What? And then it doesn't happen. And you're like, oh. So Steven finds out from Garnet that the only way to defeat this thing is to use a laser light cannon. Again, indicating that they fought these things before. And the last time, this is what they used to defeat it. But since they don't have one of those, Amethyst will have to do it.
Yes, I think one of the best visual gags, probably in the entire series, is watching Garnet throw Amethyst at the Red Eye and just having her splat and slide off into the ocean. And then with expert timing, which is imperative in comedy, when they go to look at the Red Eye again when he's telling Greg about it, she flies right off of screen and hits it again, just giving you that reminder that they're still trying this ridiculous tactic.
Right. And later on, she's like, I think I'm putting a dent in it. It's like,
so brilliant comedy there.
Amethyst missile.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, man.
But Steven says, oh, well, maybe my dad has it. And they're all like, eh.
Yeah, this is... one of the first inclination of a character is nobody seems very interested in involving that character.
Or they don't feel that they're very trustworthy.
Yeah, they're already opening up the questions about that character.
But Steven, in his way, is completely undeterred. He's going to go and figure it out anyway.
Yeah, and Steven has something that is another underlying theme of the entire story. Steven has an unconditional love for his father. And we can talk more about this in depth, but... for all intents and purposes, as he's presented to us immediately, Greg is kind of a deadbeat, kind of a washout, kind of a bum.
You just reminded me the name of the
car wash.
It's a wash. And it's an elephant.
Yeah.
I think it's very cute.
But Steven loves him anyway, and thinks the world of his father, as we see in the episodes Mirror Gem, Ocean Gem. So it's just interesting to see that Steven, regardless of what his father seems like, wants him to be able to help out, wants him to be able to take part, even though the gems want him to have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and also, as was directly said to us, Rose saw the value in everything, even the man-eating moth, And Steven very much shows that same quality. It's why he's able to turn Peridot.
Yeah.
It's why he's, I believe, is able to convert Lapis. It's not like this is a sudden ability that he has. They've been hinting at it all the way back to this point.
Yeah. But one of the things that is very interesting is that when Steven is crawling around in the Dad Museum to try and find the cannon, he bumps into the picture a little too hard. And we get our first, at least good, clear look at Rose Quartz.
Yes. It's possible there might have been a side image of the large portrait that's over the entrance to the house, but it's not been focused on at all. So, yeah, this is the first obvious, this is Rose Quartz image.
Yeah, and of course she's looking very stately and elegant
and full of hair.
Yes. Especially with Greg's head sort of like peeking in from the corner, stuffed full of hot dog.
Yeah, with a hot dog hanging out of his mouth. It's the goofiest picture.
Yeah, but I think again that's to draw the comparison of the type of people they are. Yes, Rose is understood to be this very magnanimous, very stately, beautiful creature, and Greg is kind of just your everyday man. Yeah. But they managed to find love. They managed to make it work, and
Greg's still not sure, like,
why. Yeah.
We do find out later that he did pursue her somewhat doggedly
when
they met.
Yeah, I think the fact that he does have very pure intentions, he does have very real emotions for Rose. The fact that when he's sitting in the back of the van and Marty is trying to convince him that he could have, hundreds of normal-sized women. that he even says the phrase, women aren't objects or women aren't things, Marty. So I think they try to indicate that Greg does actually love Rose very much and is the one, I believe, that helps teach her to understand what love is, which can be seen in many of the flashback episodes.
Yeah, and is actually alluded to in the closing theme.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's still a lot of
debate over
yeah, from whose perspective.
To me, it sounds like it's Rose talking to Greg. Yeah. That's what it feels like to me.
If anything, my opinion would be that Greg taught them how to play music, and that was what happened when they do What Can I Do For You? That was sort of their first solid attempt at making music together. And that's not a euphemism. But I can imagine her needing to leave, needing to give up her physical form in order to give birth to Steven, and sort of as a parting gift, singing this song to him.
Oh, man. If they ever show that.
So many tears.
So many feels.
Manly tears.
Yeah, Lion 3 was bad enough.
Oh my god. I still can't watch that episode.
Yeah. Oh, man. When Steven and Sadie turn around on Lars and they both got tears in their eyes, and everybody watching the episodes got tears in their eyes, you're all there.
Except for Lars, who just slowly backs away.
Yeah, he's just like, okay. Oh, man. Which is good, because you need to put a little bit of levity, because that was a very heavy episode. 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, back to this.
Well, that's the thing. This episode works as a very good contact episode for branching out into discussions for later episodes.
Right. And remember, it is the second episode.
Yeah.
They are still establishing the world and the characters so that we can go and actually have a story.
Yeah.
Which is why the next couple episodes are very, episode of the week style. Like, the next one's Cheeseburger Backpack. And you can kind of take that episode by itself. If you just watch that episode, you wouldn't feel like you were missing anything, really.
Yeah, there are a few small hints in that episode that I'd care to talk about, but not.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's hints peppered through all the various episodes. The next episode after that is Together Breakfast.
Yeah,
which is also, it's a fun romp episode, but the biggest thing you get out of it, canon-wise, is a little bit of a tour of the interior of the temple.
Yeah, I made that breakfast.
You did. Including the popcorn.
Yes, including the popcorn. But so as we're, again, taking our tour through the Dad Museum, another interesting thing is that Greg has a lot of cat memorabilia.
Yes. There is a portrait of a cat covered in yarn. There's a stuffed cat at one point. There's a cat carrier.
There's the Lucky Cat Chinese.
Yeah, the Chinese
statue.
Lucky Cat. Yeah. We could probably spend the next hour talking about just the stuff that was in that garage. Yeah. There were ancient artifacts. We saw a spear and shield from a Maasai warrior. There was a sword, a centurion's helmet, bow and arrows,
all kinds of stuff and I know they're just trying to give off the whole cluttered mess appeal. And I'm also wondering if they were trying to indicate that Greg's tried a lot of other activities when his music career became somewhat failing, and so maybe he took up different sports, or maybe he took up collecting different things, who knows. But because you see something and you're like, oh, there's got to be a story behind this.
I mean, there was a box that had a VHS tape sticking out of it, which is a hint towards maximum capacity and the whole Little Butler thing. The cat carrier is also
mentioned in that episode. Yeah.
The T-shirt cannon
is a reference to Shirt Club.
Yeah. Buy T-shirt cannons.
I just love the idea of a T-shirt cannon company producing T-shirts to market the cannon, and then every cannon they sell just comes preloaded with one of those shirts.
Yeah. And so, there's a lot of little things. And then there's little cultural references. There's a Super Mario mushroom in there. I saw there's a rubber ducky. There's a rubber chicken. There's there's just so much stuff. But what really intrigued me was the historical stuff. The stuff that you would expect to see in a museum. Like an actual museum, not just a dad museum.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that it's costume material.
Could be.
old Halloween costume
what was
stuff.
the big red scary mask? Was that was Tengu mask? Is that what you
Oh yeah, there was a Japanese Tengu mask in the background as well. It's like a red mask with a long nose. Tengu are a type of Japanese bird demon. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, there's a lot of strange material.
And I begin to wonder, since we find out later that the gems have been around since prehistory, as far as man's concerned, that Rose may have been on Earth and witnessed and collected a lot of this stuff from over the years, and Greg has it, just like he has the laser light cannon.
Yes.
That maybe after Steven was born, a lot of stuff that belonged to Rose was given to Greg, either because, I don't know, in Rose's room, it's like a pink poofy holodeck.
Yeah.
But, obviously there were some real things.
Yeah.
And Greg has a lot of that stuff.
In the picture of them crossing the Delaware, they are all wearing colonial garb. Mm-hmm. So it would make sense that they would have other items from across the years, across the centuries. And yeah, maybe Rose was as much of a pack rat as Greg and Steven are. And
what's really funny is if that stuff's authentic...
Oh my God.
Greg's actually got a lot of money.
A lot of priceless artifacts.
And he could probably even open his own little museum. If that's true, he's not as poor as he seems to be.
Yeah, but I think the kind of person that Greg is, he would be the kind of guy that would donate it to an actual museum. Because I think that's one of the things about Greg is that he's extremely humble. He had his shot for glory, he took it, and he kind of didn't quite make it. And so now his dream is to be a father to his son. So he's gone from having very lofty goals to having very simple goals.
Yeah, very domestic goals. Yeah. That garage is almost as good as the temple for the Serious Steven temple.
Oh, yeah.
For going back to and trying to see what's in here that is relevant to something else.
Yeah.
So Steven accidentally breaks the frame for the photo, and he tells Greg about it, and Greg says the phrase, if every pork chop were perfect, we wouldn't have hot dogs. And suddenly, there is
the laser light
cannon. All the way in the back of the garage. Since garages seem to work on a last in, first out principle, that light cannon must have been one of the earliest things put in that garage.
Yeah.
It was all the way in the back.
Yeah, it's possible that was one of the first things that Greg received when Rose passed. It's possible he stuck it in the back because he didn't want to think about it. It's possible he stuck it in the back because he's afraid of magic things.
It's also funny that the gems were completely unaware that he had that. Because they said, oh, she wouldn't have given him anything that important. And even if she did, he probably lost it or broke it or something like that.
Yeah, I still think that the gems, intentionally or otherwise, downplay the amount of trust or the amount of just interaction that Greg and Rose had. Because the gems have been around each other for, again, thousands of years. And to them, Greg is just a blip in time. So, no, she wouldn't have given some blip in her existence one of the most important weapons in her entire artillery. And since Greg doesn't have any magical powers, it's not like she would have given it to him to use. So, to them, logically, it would make no sense. And even if, for whatever reason, she did, they kind of chalk Greg up to being a failure. Right. And it's likely that he would have, like Amethyst says, broken it or lost it or something. So that idea is just completely hopeless.
Yeah, and it's an underrunning theme from this episode up through, I think, at least like Jailbreak, that they don't hold Greg in high esteem. They think that he's more of a hindrance than a help. And maybe it's the message received episode where he actually is able to help them with something that suddenly it seemed to change around, not in a great way, not like he joins the group or anything like that, but they at least seem to have some measure of respect for him after that. Which reminds me, there's another underrunning current throughout these early episodes, which is Greg seems very afraid of gem technology, gem magic, all of that.
Yeah, I would be too if these magical creatures came to my planet. I thought they were kind of cool at first. I fell in love with one of them, and then they told me about, or even I got to experience, a full-scale invasion.
Yeah, I know it's something that we've talked about in the past, that, wow, Greg seems really anxious whenever anything magic comes up.
Yeah, I mean, the fact alone that he knows his wife, whatever you want to call it, had to give up her life in order to protect the planet, that alone is enough to prove that this is not child's play, pun unintentional. So, to him, gem-related magic is just another reminder that this is something that could have destroyed the planet.
Yeah. He also says what might have been just a joke, but he says, like, you know, this magic stuff could affect what's left in my hair.
Yeah.
And a little personal theory that I always seem to have running in the back of my head is that most of the time, if not all the time, that you see Greg, he's wearing an A shirt, an A t-shirt, but he's got these really deep tan lines that match somebody wearing a t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
He always has those tan lines. I think the only time I've seen him wear anything different is in, like, the winter forecast episode where it's winter, so he's wearing a jacket. But it always seemed weird. Like, you know, did something happen to him that caused him to have this, like, permatan?
Well, in Steven's birthday, and I think in another episode, I think he wears it twice. He has the Rally for Life or the Run for Life t-shirt or whatever. It's like that blue color, and it has the running person that looks like a white stick figure on it.
Oh, I'll have to look at those episodes again because, yeah, I don't remember that specifically. I also noted that there was a white stripe across his toes, like he had sandals on. And obviously he's balding, even though he has a humongous, like, mane of hair in the back.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, that I've seen before.
Yeah, he definitely looks like one of those, like, has-been rocker type people.
Looks like I said, a sort of bummish, washed out kind of guy. And I think that the tan lines kind of add to that because everything about his appearance is supposed to be somewhat jarring or somewhat asymmetrical or not normal to give you this sort of, this guy doesn't fit into society.
Yeah, that could be. Anyway, that's just like a little thing that goes in my head. And then he says a statement like that, and I'm like, okay, well, is something magic what happened to, you know, what hair you had before? Because I didn't even think about it until we rewatched this episode. But on the CD cover of Let Me Drive My Van Into Your Heart, you get an image of young Greg.
Yeah.
Who we get to see, you know, in the flesh later on.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the full head of hair and all that stuff. And I just realized that, yeah, there's young Greg, you know?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people like to believe that in whatever the most formative parts of their life were, the best parts of their life, they want to keep that image of themselves. And so for Greg, that's probably the part of his life where he was an active musician. He just started what was going to be his dream career. He met amazing people. So that's the sort of image of himself he wants to hold on to. And one of the identifying factors of that image was his hair. And so attempting to cling to that part of his life, he attempts to cling to whatever hair he can, despite the fact that his genetics do not agree with that.
Yeah, and, you know, Greg strikes me as, to use a comparison, a rather Homer Simpson-esque character. He's just like the dad figure. He's not the most intelligent person, but he means well, and he tries to do his best.
Yeah, I would put him at a slightly more empathetic level than Homer Simpson.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't see him strangling Steven, for example.
Well, no. I mean, he's definitely a different character, but I think he fits in a similar mold.
He's like the bumbling, lovable oaf kind of character.
Yeah.
And as well as he means, Greg is a bit, rough around the edges.
Yeah. So they find the cannon.
Mm-hmm.
We use those ever popular extension cords as ropes to pull the cannon out. Love the cartoon gag of the whole
cube.
Mess coming out as a cube, and then crashing, and then putting it in the wagon and breaking the wagon's bottom out. But they drag it anyway. Somehow the rim of the wagon is much more resilient than the bottom. Cartoon physics.
Yeah.
A good thing that the cannon itself is pretty resilient, so all those sparks it's throwing as they're dragging it don't somehow damage it.
Yeah, I'm sure if the entire thing is supposed to be made of like magical light or
Gem
whatever,
magic,
yeah, there's some sort of crazy physics going on there. What with the density of the light and the wave properties and giving off sparks by itself, but that's way too pseudoscience.
So, yeah, and then as they're driving the thing as fast as they can at 50 miles
50
an
miles
hour,
an hour, yeah.
back to the beach.
Fans.
You know, you were saying how Steven, like, respects his father, even when he doesn't
respect
himself. So he wants to play the CD, and he's like, oh, you've already heard it. And he's like, yeah, well, you come on. And he plays it anyway. And you see that great image of the music starts playing, and Steven starts bouncing to the music. And then Greg gets this, like, little goofy smile glint in his eye, and he's like, okay.
Well, yeah,
you know,
because
it's
to Greg, he never reached his full potential. He remembers what he wanted to be, which is probably your big, flashy rock star up in a stage in front of millions, selling, handing out autographs, but he never got there. So to him, his music is a reminder of his failure. But Steven sees it as another amazing aspect of his father. And so he loves it. He wants, like, oh yeah, this is something really cool that you did, so we should embrace it. And that alone is enough for Greg to appreciate that aspect of himself. If he could make his own son happy with that music, then he did something right.
Yeah.
It's such a great show for family values. It just really is. It surprises me.
And it's not like they beat you over the head with it. Yeah. You know, it's like somebody says, and now look, kids.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just, no, the son's bopping to this music that the father wrote that he doesn't really care for personally, or like you said, it reminds him of his failure. And he's over there singing it like it's the number one hit. And, and it brings kind of a tear to his eye. And
it's all visual cue. That's the thing. They just do a very good job of expressing emotion.
Oh, and by the way, we have a giant orb of death flying down.
Let's not forget the primary threat in this episode is still active.
Right. So they get to the beach, they unload the thing, the crystal gems are like, "Yeah, found it," And of course they can't get this thing to go, and it's just a funny Amethyst just like plop.
Just rubbing Steven on it.
Yeah, oh boy.
Steven applied directly to the cannon.
But it's like, oh, you have her gem, only you can control it. Now, if you remember the previous episode, he could only manifest his shield when he was thinking fondly of his friends and eating a cookie cat, And here it's like, turn on the cannon, I don't know how. And he's like, go, activate, whatever.
Open sesame.
Yeah. And then we get something that you see a lot in anime, like DBZ comes to mind, when some supermassive objects getting close to the Earth, and now gravity just reverses.
Yeah.
And everything just starts, getting sucked up into it.
Because it didn't have an intense gravitational field when Amethyst was being thrown at it.
Right. If we're trying to be really technical about it, if it had enough gravity to start pulling up the sign to the fry shop and pulling the van away, then when you tossed Amethyst at the thing, she'd start orbiting the thing at the very least. Which would have also been kind of funny, but,
But when they say the phrase, if every pork chop were perfect, we wouldn't have hot dogs, that's what ignites the cannon.
Right.
So we have various forms of speculation here as to what actually causes the cannon to activate.
Is it the words, like it's a password that nobody would guess because it's like a little personal phrase between the two of them? Or is it the sentiment behind it, knowing that all of Steven's powers, and therefore Rose's powers, are all based on emotion? And I've thought of a third possibility, which is kind of a combination of the two. Mm-hmm. That in order to, password encode it, you have to use a phrase that has an emotional meaning behind it.
Yeah, so, again, there are just several different methods for this to actually work. Again, it could be just as simple as saying the words, because both Greg and Steven say them separately, so it's possible just the phrase alone is functional.
Right. I would say it was based on Steven's gem, except for the fact that the first time it glows and Steven sees it in the garage is when Greg says it. And Greg's obviously not magical whatsoever. So, except that he's the other party behind the memory, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of open space that could possibly filled, maybe not, who knows.
The point is, the next time they fire the cannons, which is when they're trying to defeat the hand ship, they put like a walkie-talkie next to them, and he says it over the walkie-talkie, and so it sounds like a verbal command.
Yeah, it's probably,
to me.
Yeah.
And it's not just the one, but the 4 of them, because they find the other 3 in that special cave later on. So they're all thusly encoded. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty sure that the fact that she used that phrase to encode it because it had meaning to her.
Yeah, and also another little aside, it's interesting to note that in the picture that Greg and Rose have taken together, Greg is eating a hot dog. Mm-hmm. I think it's a little too coincidental that the phrase is also about hot dogs. Mm-hmm. So if I were to posit a small theory, maybe an obvious one, it's that I would believe that phrase that they came up with probably originates from that same time as that photo.
Yeah, and in that photo, Greg is balding in that picture too. So the phrase, if every pork chop were perfect, we wouldn't have hot dogs. Mm-hmm. It seems to be a metaphorical answer to Greg's question of what did your mother ever see in a dope like me?
Yeah, because just because something's not perfect doesn't mean it doesn't have value. If you believe hot dogs have value. No.
Well, I do.
Yeah. So, yeah, he may not be perfect. He may not be, every part of him might not be great. He may be, again, a little rough around the edges. But that doesn't mean he's not good. It doesn't mean he doesn't have good qualities. It just means he's not the perfect pork chop. But he is a perfect hot dog.
Yeah, and it again reflects on Rose's ability to see value in everything, which, again, Steven has, and it's a very common and important theme throughout the whole show. There's another great visual image when all the crystal gems and Steven are holding the cannon up, and you get this great image of the 4 of them together, all like working to defeat this thing, and especially from the point of view of Steven, because remember, you are watching this whole story through Steven's point of view. Mm-hmm. He's one of the group. He's part of the group. Like, he can't do it himself. They can't do it without him. So they have to do it together.
Yeah, in the episode previous to this, which is, again, the only other episode that had been released at the time, he does save them. He does give them the opening to defeat the Mother Centibeetle. Mm-hmm. But in this episode, he's actually amongst them. He's actually partaking in the same activity. Right. If anything, he's the one that allowed the activity to be possible.
Right.
So he's definitely initiating himself into the group further.
Yeah, so now, let's get our catalog of imagery together. We have a cannon that, when activated, blooms like a rose. The cannon is already pink in color. You've got the rose imagery on the side of the cannon that holds it there. They hold the thing up. It's glowing pink and white hot, right? Mm-hmm. And then it fires a shot shaped like a rose.
Well, it's shaped like a rose, the flower,
right,
which blooms into Rose, the character.
Right. Before slamming into the red eye and exploding red chunks of rock everywhere in Beach City. Yeah.
It's just, to use a phrase I'm pretty fond of using when talking about this show, it's very anime, the entire attack scene. Anybody that is aware of, like, the magical girl style of anime knows that, you see this big, bright, flashy attack with colors and lights that changes shape and, sometimes has, like, floral designs and stuff, and then it, ends up actually being a very powerful and overwhelming attack, but the imagery for that is just very iconic.
Yeah. And so you get to see the thing actually defeat the Red Eye as promised. They didn't form Alexandrite at that point either, did they?
Yeah, it's strange what they choose to use fusion for. I also think that Opal must be Rebecca Sugar's favorite fusion because I think it's the one that shows up most frequently.
Yeah, not counting Garnet being a permafusion, yeah. Yeah, Giant Woman, she shows up in The Return. She shows up in one of the Gem Drill episodes. Actually, it was in Log Date.
Yeah.
They show Opal in the like Classroom Gems episode where they're talking about fusion, the YouTube video.
Yeah, Opal actually shows up frequently as one of the characters in the school alternate universe. I don't know if you're aware, but there's actually a like sanctioned canon alternate universe where all of the characters go to school, including like the adult quote unquote characters. And Steven's the principal. A lot of the title cards that are written and drawn up before the show airs that announce the titles before they're actually released take place in this school alternate universe, and Opal is one of the frequently returning characters despite the fact that none of the other fusions are.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of my mind blowing. No, I never heard of this at all.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and show you some of the pictures.
And if you had shown it to me, I would have thought it was like a fan thing. Because I have seen other fan things. I've seen what could be like 2-3 pages worth of a comic book. That's all fan done, and it's done really well. And I'm like, wow.
Oh yeah. We'll take some time after this episode, and I'll show them to you. But I think that's it for tonight.
Yeah, we've saved most of Beach City.
We've saved most of Beach City.
The poor Mr. Fryman, he lost his sign, and I also thought it was a funny gag that the sign falls apart as though it was actually a box of fries. Like all the fries fall out of it. You know, I see that a lot in cartoons. I think even in the Cookie Cat episode when the refrigerator gets damaged, the face of the Cookie Cat
melts
looks kind of like
a frown.
Oh, like I'm in pain or whatever. People in Beach City, they're just used to this.
Oh yeah, Kofi's sign gets destroyed too. It's just living in Beach City. It's not
insurance rates must be
terrible.
God.
Anyway, just want to thank all you guys for listening as per usual. If you have any thoughts, opinions, theories that you want to share with us, you can send them to us at gemtalkpodcast@gmail.com. We'll be sure to answer your questions and may even read some of them on air.
Yeah, and also we're on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr.
Pretty much
the same name, GemTalk Podcast. All together.
Yeah, pretty much on any social media platform that we can get to.
And we'd love to respond to your comments and would love to hear your theories, or if there's a theory you want us to talk about.
Or a specific episode.
Yeah, because there are 80-some episodes.
But for now, goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.